Welcome back, my awesome people. Today, I am honored to be here with Melanie Warner. She's the founder of Defining Moments Press. Now, Melanie is a serial entrepreneur who engineered a $7.6 million turnaround in just 18 months. And you got to watch to find out how and why. And now she helps experts turn their knowledge into scalable books, media platforms, and high ticket client ecosystems through their seven-figure book method. Now, this is new to me. I am looking forward to learning more about it. And not only that, but she has spoken at the United Nations and won the Mind Valley Speaker Competition. And we're going to get into her upcoming book, The Cash Value of a Woman. So, as I always say, my friends, this is one of those interviews that it's not always talking about stocks and finance, but it is definitely going to either help you with your portfolio, help you with your business, or even just help you maybe if you're in a stuck type position, you're trying to do something new, this is the interview for you. So let's get right into it. Melanie, how are you doing today?
Hey, Jacob, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being on here with me today. I know it's a busy time of the year, so thank you. So let's just get right into it. So, Melanie, let's start at the beginning. What drew you into the world of entrepreneurship, education, and publishing?
That is a great question. So, I come from a long history of entrepreneurs. For literally the last several hundred years, everyone in my family pretty much was an entrepreneur, including the women, which was really unique and rare. And in fact, my on my dad's side, I'm related to the tap and stove family that invented the microwave. And on
Oh,
my mother's side, I'm related to the Wright brothers who invented the airplane. And so I have these crazy inventor blood running through me. I also have a lot of writers in my family throughout history. And something that's always been important to me is the power of words. And so I have a lot of diaries of some of my well-known family members. So I could see their inner dialogue and how they responded to things happening in their life. And I just think it's so fascinating when you read people's journals or their private diaries as they're dealing with adversity and how are they turning things around. So growing up, I just felt like I always had wings to fly. Like I could do anything because my parents were so supportive and just kind of let me make these mistakes. And I started my first business when I was, 18 years old. I had to learn a lot from that business. My very first job interview ever, I went into a radio station, had applied, and I got the job. So I was an on-air DJ personality at 15 years old while I was still going to school full time in high school at a radio station in Texas where I grew up. And so that opened the door to media. It taught me how to speak one to many. And this was long before social media. This was like, feels like 100 years ago, you know? Um, so I got into media at 15 and at 18 started my very first business, which I came in really hard. I crashed and burned. I brought in a couple of partners because I didn't have a lot of confidence. And I thought, oh, I'm just a young girl. Like, who's going to take me seriously? I doubted myself. Anybody ever feel that way? That I got to bring in other people for credibility because I'm too young and I don't know anything yet. I don't have anything to offer the world. And so those two partners helped me build this marketing company to where we had clients in all 50 states within about a year and a half. And then what's funny is they ended up moving on and kicking me out of my own company. So that was like my first experience of starting and building and scaling and running a business at 18 and learning how to deal with partners and the good, bad, and ugly of that as well.
you know, as soon as you mentioned the microwave and the Wright brothers, I was just in shock because I'm a history buff and I've read so much about those individuals. So I'm actually honored, really honored to be in the presence of a family member of theirs. But you know what? Being kicked out of a business that you created definitely is not ideal, but it's one of those moments that makes you get back up and build something even better, bigger, and stronger. So it's just one of those experiences that you can take a negative and turn it into a massive, massive positive. And so, what problem in the publishing industry did you see made you decide that you're going to start defining Moments Press?
So that's funny. It's a funny question. So when I had that experience as a business person, and then I stayed in the media world. And I also was an actor. Like, so I was doing acting and modeling, when I was like 18, 19. So I did, a couple of smaller parts here and there. It wasn't anything major. And then I had an agent when I lived in Los Angeles, and he kept telling me, if you want to make money as an actor, if you really want to be known in movies, you have to do Playboy. And that was his claim to fame. Like, I'm going to get you into Playboy. So he actually got me the ability to be in Playboy, like a commitment. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take off my clothes in front of the whole world. I was very kind of, I don't know, modest or pure. Like, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Nothing against anybody that did. And
And
so I was
especially
very,
at that time, it was like the
oh, yeah.
biggest thing, right? It was like if you went there, you kind of
Oh,
made it. Yeah.
well, and he was right though. He literally went down every major actor. I mean, every even Meryl Streep. Like, people don't know that like all these
Oh,
major
wow.
actresses had done Playboy. Like, I didn't even know. And so I kept saying no. I'm really that I just don't feel like that's in alignment with me. And everybody was like, "You're crazy. This is a huge opportunity. You have to do this if you want to be an actress in Hollywood." And that part right there didn't resonate with me. And I thought, do I really want to be in an industry where I have to take off my clothes to get a job? It made me feel like a prostitute, even though I'm not judging anybody who did it. It was just how I felt. So what's funny is I was so adamant about not doing it. He said, well, the publisher wants to meet with you and find out why you're saying no, because nobody says no to this. Like, this is what everybody's trying to get to. And so he genuinely wants to know. And I said, okay, fine, I'll meet with him. So I went over to meet with him at his house, which turned out to be Hugh Hefner at Playboy
No
Mansion.
way.
And he was very respectful and very serious about, I really want to understand this, right? So I can do better. Because he said, I'm not trying to exploit women. I'm trying to show women the power they really have. I'm giving women a platform to feel empowered. And I thought that all sounds great, but I'm more interested in why you started this magazine. Like, what made you do it? So he started sharing with me all these really funny stories about how it kind of evolved into full frontal nudity just to get the attention of the male readers. But his passion was really about writing. And he was a writer at heart. And so I connected with him as a writer, as a journalist. That spoke to me. And we then spent the next few hours talking about why did he start this magazine? How was he passionate about it? What did he hope to make it happen? And he really inspired me so much to start a magazine that I immediately left there. I quit acting forever, never looked back. My agent was probably relieved because I kept turning things down, and he's making a commission. And I immediately made the decision at the ripe old age of 21. I think I was 21, no, 22, living in Los Angeles. And I said, I'm going to start a magazine. I had no clue how to start a magazine. I had never worked for a magazine company. I was in a highly competitive space where there were multi-million dollar companies, agencies, magazines all around me. And I would take like other people's magazines on sales appointments and say, I'm starting a magazine. It's going to look like this, but not so thick. And so I just kind of started selling air, and it was really weird. Like, I had this vision and I was very committed to following it through all the way, even though I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just got a few people who said yes. And then I said, I'm going to figure it out. And I had no idea what I didn't know. And to be honest, there was a point where I had to decide to start this business, and my lease was up in my apartment. So I either could pay rent for another month or pay for an office. Because back then, you couldn't work out of your home. There was no Zoom. There wasn't even the internet. Like, you had to meet in person, face to face with people to get them to do anything, to close a deal. It wasn't even over the phone, right? So I started this business. It was a magazine called the Hollywood Monthly, and I had a company called the Hollywood Referral Network. So I started working with actors and people in that space and trying to connect them and plug them in. And we would bring in casting directors and do these, live events and then try to hook them up. And I mean, it was just like a networking event for people in the entertainment space. And and so I started this magazine. Um, and Pamela Anderson from Baywatch was on the first cover. So that was a big break, right? Like, I really loved her. I thought she represented like this new Marilyn Monroe kind of era in her space. And she was really big back then, and she was in her 20s. And so that became a really good opportunity to interview her and get on the map. So we started that one, and I had that magazine for about a year and a half. And it became so much fun, but I wasn't making a lot of money because I made a very critical mistake. I created a business where my primary clients were broke. They were all actors trying to make a
They're all
living in
hungry, starving artists. Yeah.
So never create a business for broke people unless you want to charge high interest rates to sell them jewelry or something. You know what I mean? So that was that, and I put my whole heart into this, but I was never making any money. And here's the thing, Jacob. Remember when I said I had to make a decision between paying rent or starting this business? I had to build, I had to, I went and signed a lease for an office. And this is so embarrassing. But I made the decision to live in that office. And I had this little closet that was literally a closet where my entire belongings were there. And I had a little bed on the floor. And I slept in there for 3 months because I couldn't afford to pay rent and have an office. So I left my apartment. I put everything in storage. I literally slept on a like a comforter and had boxes like those storage boxes when you
Yeah.
move, those silver bars in them. That was my closet in a closet. And I would sleep in there, and there was a shower in that place, and there was a gym adjacent to that building. Okay. And it was probably like illegal because you're not supposed to be sleeping in your office back then. And they would lock the office every night. People would leave not knowing I was living there. And they would lock the door at night. And I kept thinking, God, if there's a fire, I am dead. I can't get out of here. I'm locked in until morning. And I didn't want anybody to know that I was living there. I was so ashamed. And so the benefit is when someone would say, "Can you have a meeting at 7 a.m.?" I'd be, "Yes, I can. But I don't know how to unlock the door from the inside because they'd be on the outside trying to get in. You know what I mean? So it was just so funny, but it was all about delayed gratification. And it was like, I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to follow my passion, my soul, and what I feel like is this purpose in my life at this moment. And you know what? It was amazing. It all worked out. It just all worked out.
That is an incredible journey because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, even a regular startup, they can definitely relate to that. I mean, even the great Elon Musk that everyone admires, he slept in his factories for months and months on end, not because he didn't have the money, but it's more because he was that hungry and that passionate about his business. And what you did, of course, you had that decision between rent or office. And, back then you couldn't, Zoom people, but it was that sacrifice that you made that got you here. And I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, we don't show it on the front side. People don't really know what entrepreneurs go through, but we go through hell. We go through hell and back with just to make our passions and our dreams come alive. And even though you started off with that acting dream and you met some really heavy hitters, it led you to where you are now through that realization of I can either take my clothes off or I can learn the business and make my own from it. And I think with the Hollywood referrals and the magazine that you created, I mean, we have TMZ now, which is pretty much what you did. But the only difference is TMZ probably has, hundreds of investors. But I think that is an incredible journey, Melanie, because it is something that we don't talk about often. We
Yeah.
just shut up and do it, and people see the glitz and glam, but they don't see those nights where you're locked in your office and can't leave until the morning until they open it. So, no, that is incredible, and thank you for that. And now that that era has passed and the journey has continued, your business is even bigger than before. You've actually engineered a $7.6 million turnaround within 18 months, less than 2 years. And can you tell us about that story and journey? What was it all about? What happened? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this who are in a little hole right now, maybe not in the millions, maybe just a few thousand or even a few 100,000, but don't know where to start, don't know what to do. So maybe if you can inspire them on how you did it.
Absolutely. So I had started my magazine and media company. After a year and a half of that magazine, I ended up selling it. And then I started another company that was just doing production. We were doing commercials, infomercials back then, things like that, short videos, music videos, all of that. Um, and then I started another magazine that was a city regional magazine because I ended up getting married, having kids, and going, okay, I need some stability in my life. As an entrepreneur, we never know where our next paycheck is coming from. And, for some people, we thrive on that uncertainty and it gives us this adrenaline rush, right? But when you have kids and you're like, okay, I need some stability, I need some health insurance, amen, right? I need to do this thing. So it was funny. I ended up moving out of LA. And quite frankly, this is almost another story. I don't know if I should get into it, but I got some of the best career advice ever from Arnold Schwarzenegger at a
Oh,
Hollywood
please
party.
do.
Okay. And I want to digress, but I want to get back to answer your question about publishing. But here's what happened. So I was at this party feeling like a loser because all the people I was trying to do business with as a producer and get all these projects off the ground, I was running around trying to finance things, do meetings with people. Everybody was blowing me off because I was such a nobody, right? And that's in Hollywood, everybody feels like that. So I'm at this event and all these agents and all these people that I was trying to do business with were just kind of ignoring me like I wasn't there. And then what's funny is about 6 months earlier, I had been at 7-Eleven and I was pregnant with my daughter, like really pregnant. And I heard this voice behind me. I was at the counter to buy like icy. I was craving sugar. So I was buying an icy and some candy. And I hear this voice behind me and he says, "Is that all you got, Mom?" And I turn around and it's Kevin Costner and he's buying
No
my like
way.
to buy my drinks from me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet. Thank you. And we talked for a second and he asked my name and everything. And then 6 months later, I find myself at the Waterworld premiere, the world premiere in Hollywood, this huge party. I don't even remember how I snuck in there or got in there, somehow got in there. And I'm sitting there. I was married at the time. My husband is like scarfing his face with food. And all of a sudden I hear this familiar voice come up and go, "Hey, it's great to see you." I look up, it's Kevin Costner. My husband's like with shrimp hanging out of his mouth, like, "What?" And so he pulls me up, gives me this giant hug, acts like he's known me my whole life, so kind, so loving, so friendly. And all of a sudden, all these people that were ignoring me think I'm friends with him. So they start coming to the table to hang out. This is how Hollywood works, right? It's so funny.
It's all about who
So,
you know.
yeah, so we're sitting there alone like losers at the table. No one even wanted to sit with us. And then all of a sudden, back then it was as Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow. Remember when they were dating
Oh
and they
yeah.
had the same haircut and they looked like brother and sister? Remember that? So that was that phase. They came and sat down, right? And then it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these people like from Hollywood, like famous people started sitting at our table. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was sitting there like smoking a cigar, just laid back, talking to people. And I said, "Hey, listen, I have a question for you. Like, what advice would you give a struggling producer? Like, I'm trying to get these projects, trying to get the money. Everybody seems full of crap. Like, how do I know who to trust? And what do I do?" And he said, "Here's the deal. Everybody in Los Angeles is chasing the same nut. They're all trying to get the same financing, the same deals, the same relationships. What I recommend is you leave Hollywood, go make your money somewhere else, and then buy your way back in. Come back in and buy your way in." I never forgot that advice. So we actually ended up moving out of LA because we were having kids and we needed that family support. So we moved to Fresno, on April Fool's Day, which was hilarious. So most of my Hollywood friends like wrote me out of their Rolodex. Back then it was called a file of facts, you guys. I'm showing my age. And so we moved to Fresno, we started working, and then I said, okay, what do I want to do now? Like, I need to reboot myself in my life and support my family. I left LA where I had my business, all my relationships, all my contacts, my whole career, and I started over, like to support my family financially. So I started a magazine called Fresno Magazine, which was a city regional magazine, and it grew into this huge multi-million-dollar company. Okay, so I was building that out. Now we flash forward about 16 years later. I'm doing this magazine. Everything's going great. We're making money. I own several houses. I have all these investment portfolios. I have multiple streams of income. I feel like I have it made. I have my dream home, 12,000 square feet. I have my kids. I'm married. I have everything going for me. And I open the drawer one day. I'm cleaning house and I find this bucket list that I wrote when I was 18 years old of all these crazy things that I thought would take a lifetime to do. And I start realizing, oh my gosh, I had written all this stuff down and forgot I even wanted it. start marking things off and realizing, oh, did that, did this, did that. Pretty soon I realized I've done everything on this list except one thing, which was write a book. I'm like, okay, I got to do that. Still on my list. I put it in the drawer, forgot about it. 1 week later, I find myself in the hospital. There's been an accident. I'm laying on the gurney. I am bleeding out. The doctor says this is life threatening. Later, I learned I had 90 seconds left to live. I lost almost 80% of the blood in my body. And it was horrific and so horrifying. And the first thing I thought was, did I manifest this? Because my little bucket list said things I want to do before I die.
Oh, wow.
That's what I wrote at 18 years old. And here I am now in my 30s experiencing this, going, did I manifest this? Right? Oh my gosh, I can't die. I have so much left to do. And my list was full. And so I still have to write that book. I still have to do these things. What about my laundry? What about my family? All the unfinished business in my life. I can't die. And so I had this profound spiritual experience in the hospital that shifted everything. It was really a big defining moment because I obviously I lived, and so I made this commitment, like I will never take my life for granted. I'm not going to say that someday I'm going to do things. I'm going to go do them and not just talk about them. And I need to make a new list, a new, not bucket list, but just things I want to do, period. And so I got through that situation. And then a few days later, I had another massive defining moment in my life because my son Carson passed away in my
Oh,
arms.
no.
So here I am, I almost died. And then a few days later, my son actually died, and there was nothing I could do to save him. And as a mother, it was horrible. I had survival guilt. I was dealing with grief. I shut down so hard, Jacob. I didn't know how to survive this. Like there was no life manual to teach this. And even though I felt like, okay, I'm a faith-based person, I'm positive, I'm going to get through this, it was dark. It was hard, right? And so I shut down so hard that I honestly didn't know how to function. So then my marriage fell apart. My business fell apart. Everything that I couldn't show up for these things and these people in my life, I just couldn't deal with the grief. I was in this deep, dark hole of depression and sadness and grief and anger and frustration. And even though I was grateful to be alive, I was still really just in the thick of it. So I ended up getting divorced. And then I went through bankruptcy and foreclosure. I had to shut down my business, my only source of income that took me, it was like 16 years, 20 years of building this business. And everything was gone like that overnight. So now I'm dealing with grief, plus all the financial issues. My relationship, my marriage of 16 years was over. And I became a single mom with 3 kids. But and at that point now I'm in my 40s and I'm trying to navigate life and have to rebuild everything. So I went back and thought about what am I really passionate about? Because I can't just get a job, right, to pay off this debt. And by the way, that debt was $3.6 million in debt.
Wow.
Okay. And part of that was the IRS said, oh, you owe $2 million, and it wasn't back taxes. They're like, oh, we calculated all this and you have all this income you're not reporting, and you owe $2 million. And we're going to add an 80% civil fraud penalty. That's 3.6 million. I went, what? I mean, talk about getting that call and
Oh
trying to
my
get out of.
gosh.
Some people are like literally want to end it all when they owe 5 grand. And I was like, that's it. And then I tell them my story and they're like, okay, I feel hopeful now. And so every day I had to wake up with this giant hole. And how do I get out of bed and even start to chip away at that? It was extremely difficult. And so what I ended up doing was I thought, okay, I need to write this book. I need to start sharing my story, my real story with people. Like all the stuff that fell apart and what happened. And I'm going to use the tools and resources that I've learned over the years. I'm going to start applying them for myself, right? Journaling, helping to help myself heal, like learning self-healing techniques. I went to my mentor, Tony Robbins, at the time. He's been a mentor for 25 years. And I said, how can I heal myself? And I took a program that he had called Strategic Intervention, where I learned self healing techniques. And it helped me learn to become a life coach. So I learned to actually help other people get through their grief and healing. And I thought, this is amazing. I can actually make a living helping other people move through their grief. So I wrote a book. In fact, my very first book was called Defining Moments, and it was coping with the loss of a child. And it was with Chicken Soup for the Soul. I had a book deal with them. And then they ended up selling their company. So it's like, then my book went along with it. And so I had to like scramble to try to get my book done by another major publisher. And all these mishaps happened on the way to trying to get this book done. And finally, after 2 years of trying to get it done, I ended up getting the rights back, doing it myself. Within 2 weeks, my book was #1 on the bestseller list. And people started asking me, can you teach me how to do this? And that's where the 7 figure book method was born. So I wrote my book. I started charging people to coach them on how to write a book, book publishing, writing books, launching books, getting booked on stages, getting featured in the media, all the things I had background and experience in life, but wasn't charging for. And through that process of writing my book and getting other people to come in and start hiring me to help them, we went from negative $3.6 million to positive 4 million in just 18 months. So I was able to end that debt, rebuild my entire life, and be able to support my family financially without getting a job. And I really had to find a way to learn all these things very quickly and apply them, because I knew I had so much to lose if I couldn't figure it out. And that's how all of this stuff evolved over a couple of years.
It's miraculous what the universe can bring to you. You can go from I'm so sorry for your loss, losing a
Thank you.
child. I've never experienced that. I do know some people who have, and it's honestly emotionally, mentally, spiritually just devastating. And coming from that to dealing with all the financial issues coming across, and then the IRS just being even more ruthless on top of that. And then I do remember Chicken Soup for the Soul. That was such a great series. They had so many different variations, for the teenager, for the mother, and all of that. And once they got sold, your book went along with it. Usually that should be a positive, but if you're not getting really anything from it, then it kind of sucks, right? But you emerged just like that phoenix from the ashes. You came, you rose, and you got yourself out of that hole. And I think a lot of my viewers who are listening to that, I'm sure a lot of them can relate, whether it's the loss of a family member, the loss of their business, the loss of their anything, and kind of rising up, or maybe some of them are still in it or going through it. And I think that story and experience is definitely going to help them out with seeing the bigger picture, right? It doesn't end when they tell you it ends. You create your own story, you create your own ending. So I'm actually happy that it ended on a good note, because that is incredible. It really is. As you said, some people will, jump off a bridge over $5,000, but you were in the hole for millions. And you were in Hollywood. You could have called all those celebrities and said, "Hey, I need a few dollars," but you didn't. And even if you did, maybe a lot
Oh,
of them would have been going after their own vision and said, "Oh, who's that person?" Right?
yeah.
So I think you
And
did
I
an
was so ashamed. I was so ashamed. Like, I didn't want
yeah.
anybody to know. I felt like I was the biggest loser on the planet. I lost everything. Who's ever going to listen to me again about any advice? Like, I can't give financial advice. I'm broke. I can't give relationship advice. I'm divorced, right? If anybody's ever listening, like that you felt that way, your setback becomes the set up for something bigger in your life. Like, and I remember when I was trying to finish the book, even though I had a major book deal with Chicken Soup for the Soul, Mark Victor Hansen, the founder of that company, said to me, stop thinking of who your book is going to help. Start thinking of who it's going to hurt if you don't finish it. And
Wow.
the next day, a woman in my hometown took her own life and stepped in front of a train because her son had died 15 years prior. And that's when I knew I don't have to be perfect to serve others. I don't have to have my life together. I felt horrible knowing that I had a solution to her pain, and my own fear and imposter syndrome and insecurity and doubt just cost somebody their life. because I didn't know her, I didn't know her son, but that inspired me to go finish my book. And within a few weeks, the book was done. Finally, like all these things I
That
was
was the
questioning.
motivation. That was that push. You weren't waiting to make it perfect. You're like, you know what? I still got this. It's still gonna be awesome. It will help people. I'm not looking for who it's exactly going to help. Let me just put it out there, and I'm sure someone it will, influence someone. And I think that's just straight amazing. And so, can you tell us more about the seven-figure book method if you want to go into detail about that? Because a lot of people, they always say they want to write a book, but they don't really have a direction or a purpose to write a book, right? Especially entrepreneurs. These days everybody's just, they have the social media platforms. They're thinking, "Oh, books are so old school. We don't need books anymore." But really, I think books actually you can use it as leverage and it can open up many doors for you. So can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So, the beauty of writing a book and what it really did for me is opened up so many doors. And there's one of my favorite quotes is from an author named J. Conrad Levinson. He wrote a book called Guerrilla Marketing. Did you ever hear of it? Came
Yes, I
out many
have.
years ago,
Yep,
probably
it's an
25 years
amazing
ago.
book.
And someone asked him, how much money did you make off your first book? And his answer was $10 million. But he only made $36,000 in royalties. So the rest of that money came from, coaching and speaking engagements and newsletters and consulting and all the wide open doors that his book opened for him for credibility and authority. You cannot say the word authority without saying the word author. So the fastest way to build instant credibility in your industry is to write a book, because we literally say this person's the expert because they wrote the book on this subject. And so when I realized that, I thought, well, what am I an expert at? Like failing? I'm an expert. I could write a book about what not to do and it'd be pretty thick. And so for me, when I started writing books, I started writing my own books and then started teaching people how to write the books. One of the biggest mistakes I made was what all these gurus were telling me to do. They were all giving their book away for free. So it was like, here's my free book, here's my free masterclass, book a free call with me. So I started doing all this stuff for free, and I wasn't charging anything, and I was exhausted because I was getting all these people that were getting a free book and then they weren't reading it. Or they were saying, let's book a free call, and they weren't showing up for the call. Or let's book a free masterclass, and they weren't showing up for the masterclass. And I realized that if it's free, that people aren't really invested in getting that result. They're more interested, but they're not serious. And what I was looking for is people that were understanding the urgency of getting their message out to the world, like I was, that if they don't get this out there, somebody could die, right? If you have the ability to solve somebody's relationship cancer, their physical cancer, their financial cancer, their emotional cancer, their mental health cancer, right? All these things that can literally kill something or someone. If you have that knowledge to help somebody and you're not sharing it with people, to me, that's being really selfish, right? And the same as people that retire with so much knowledge, 20, 30 years. And it's like there's so many people that could learn from you. What if you just write a book or create a course or become a mentor to other people, even if you charge for your time? You're not having to create new skills. All of this is already in your head as knowledge. So, what we learned is if we can extract your knowledge as an expert in your industry and we can plug it into this formula that I discovered 20 years ago called the client conversion model formula. It's in all these famous books, like it's in the Think and Grow Rich book, it's in Dale Carnegie's books, like all these famous thought leader books that have been around for 100 years. They may not even know there was a formula, but I discovered it by accident. And I started using it in my books and started teaching people what is this client conversion model formula. And the beauty of what became the seven-figure book method is simple math. So, Jacob, I'm going to ask you a question in your audience here. If you wrote a book, do you believe that you could give away a free copy, even if you just wanted to give away one free copy a day? Do you think
Definitely.
somebody somewhere in the world would want your book? Okay, just
I
even
think
just
so.
one
Yeah.
person. Okay, even if you couldn't sell it and you just give it away. Okay, if you have a business, any kind of a business, and you don't have a book, I'm going to show you how you're losing 6 or 7 figures a year. This is how the math works on the seven-figure book method. So let's just say you give away one copy a day. let's just say conservatively, you charge $1,000 for your service, which is, I mean, if you're an attorney, anybody in the professional space, you're charging more, but just, I don't like pie in the sky. So let's be conservative. Okay. So let's just say that you write a book that's going to teach somebody how to do something, how to space or expertise space. We know that if you use this formula, 20 to 30% of the people who read your book are going to want to work with you because you're a rock star and you're giving them these tools and all this amazing transformation in your book. So let's just say you give away one book a day and a 30% conversion of your audience. That's 109 new clients every year. At $1,000 each, that's six figures. It's 109,000, okay? Now, what if you gave away 3 books a day? 5 books a day? What if you charge 5,000? What if you charge $10,000? Even if you're a dentist and you're charging 10,000 for braces, what if you're the dentist who wrote the best-selling book, you're going to stand out over all your competitors in your own community, in your marketplace, right? So think about that. If you
Wow.
just give away one book a day and you charge $10,000 for your service as a professional, that's $1 million a year. Okay. Now, the 7-figure book method teaches you how to extract this knowledge and literally write the book within days. So you don't have to spend years figuring it out. We do like immersive workshops where you can come and just put it all together in a few days. Or we have ghostwriters and people that will help you extract your story and put it in this framework. And we teach you how to write the book, how to build a funnel. So here's the joy. When you sell your book, instead of just giving it away, you actually get more qualified buyers. And what happens is they come and read your book and they ascend into your high ticket offer on the back end, okay, for your service. So now your book introduces people to your system, to your solution, and then you charge for implementation on the back end. So there's a 4-step process in this. Number one, you define your expertise. Okay. What are you an expert at? Like Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, they were already experts before they wrote their books, before they were on Oprah, right? So define, here's your expertise. Here's how you help people. Here's what you charge for them. So define your expertise and say, this is my offer. Okay. Step 2 is write a book around that offer and system. Step 3 is build a funnel. And step 4 is run traffic. So when you have those first 3 steps set up in that sequence, and all you have to do is run traffic to it, now you're driving leads and real clients through that funnel. And what we're seeing is people are buying the book, and within 5 days, they're ascending into a high ticket offer. That is 1,000x return on a $5 book turning into a $5,000 client in 5 days. We call that the high five method because I love it. But can you imagine? And guess what? It's the same knowledge that's in your head right now that you've been giving away for free and not charging for. You don't need any new skills to make this method work.
That conversion formula is absolutely crazy. Like when you really think about it, it's you give out the book for free. You're not really expecting much from the book, but the opportunities that the book comes with, right? You were charging just $1,000 before writing a book, right? Everyone thinks, okay, you're awesome, $1,000, I'll have no problem paying it. But you want to level up yourself, you want to level up your business. Having that book, as you said, right, it gives you that authority, it gives you that legitimacy, that expertise, that because most people are not going to look at you without a book and say, oh, that's an expert. Well, how is that person an expert without them actually publishing something? Because I think publishing really gives you that stamp of approval. And once you do have that stamp of approval, now you can go around and increase your prices, increase your, doors that are opening around you. But that is actually such, especially the 4 steps, the way you just said it. I think that's absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of people watching
It took
this
me
right now are
forever to
writing
figure
this
that.
down. Huh?
Yeah, it took me forever to figure that out. I spent so much money the wrong way. And when I finally like created that as the 7-figure book method, we did 6 figures in the first 2 weeks. And our clients have generated over $150 million from using this system because they simply started creating revenue streams from their book. And here's the cool part. Your book gets you booked, right? On
Yes.
podcast, in the media. And once you're a best-selling author, not just any author, but best-selling author, guess what happens to your fees? Your speaker fees go up to $20,000 to $50,000. And guess what else? Now you're on the same level of credibility in the marketplace as a B-list celebrity or a professional athlete. So let me ask you, is it easier to go write a book in the next few weeks and build these assets up, or go join the NBA, or go win an Olympic medal in the next few months? You know what I mean? Or become a B-list celebrity. And the fact that you have the same level of credibility, and what's funny is everybody in the world thinks that writing a book and being a best-selling author is just as hard as winning Olympic gold, right? And they, if they really know the process and the steps, and especially this formula, it's amazing how quickly you can do it without having to develop new skills. And so now that book, it makes it easier for you to get booked on podcasts, in the media, to get featured, because you're the expert in your space. And when you're the best in the world at something, people want to work with you, and you can charge a premium for what you do.
I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the people that I admire and look up to, and I'm thinking, if they didn't write that book, would I have still been admiring them? And the answer is no, because then how would I have known about them? How can I interact with them without physically interacting with them, right? I have to read their books. And then from there, they go on the podcast, they go on the CNBCs and the MSNBCs. And that is actually an incredible point. And so, say for example, I am watching this right now. I'm like, you know what? This just gave me some motivation. I call up your company. And I say, I want to write a book. What happens next? What are the steps or necessary information that you will need for me to get to that end result of, writing a book?
I love that question, because we want to meet people where they are, but we don't want them to stay stuck. And some people really want to learn the process. So they want to write their own book. They want to build their own funnel. They want to learn this process. Other people are like, I'm too busy. And they're relieved when we're like, we can just do it for you. They're like, please just do it for us. Where we can literally build out the assets. I think the fastest we've done it is in 2 weeks, where we wrote their book, built their funnel, and did everything in 2 weeks. Even setting up the ad framework to run traffic, like all of that. Um, and then we have it done for you. So there's different ways. Like we even have like a 7-figure book camp where you can come for 3 days and build out all these assets within a few days, like even the templates and everything for the book funnel. It's crazy. So we try to make it as simple as possible for people. And when I say we meet you where you are, it's some people have much more time available to them. Other people, if they have money, they're time broke, and they're like, hey, I don't have time to do this, so will you just do it for me? And we can actually build out all those assets with maybe 6 to 8 hours maximum of that person's time, where our team is then building everything based on, interviews, and taking that knowledge out of them and then plugging it into the formula for the book. And this isn't talking about AI, right? We can partner with AI to do some pieces of this, but the truth is AI doesn't know your system, your tools, your testimonials, your history, your story, unless you program all that in. So the beauty is we're interviewing people, we're extracting your knowledge, and then we're plugging that into the framework of the 7-figure book method. So even if somebody has a webinar that's converting really well, that's 90 minutes, guess what? You can transcribe that whole thing and there's your book. It's already written.
And
You
this
don't, you
works
can,
for anyone, right? Any industry, any
yeah,
person.
yeah. We've done
That
it in
is incredible.
300 different industries. And here's the other part that's really cool is not only do we help you write your book, but we guarantee #1 on the bestseller list. I have a book that just came out that's #1 right now on Amazon, #1 bestseller in like all books on Amazon right now today as we speak. I just got that notice about an hour ago, because we did the same amount of work for this book that we do for all of our clients. And we have 100% success rate because our clients have all written and released books and become #1 bestsellers. So then how they leverage that comes down to, what are they charging on the back end, right? What tools do they want to give away, or what tools do they want to sell, right? When you're creating a book funnel, you're creating order bumps, you're creating upsells, because here's what happens when you start running ads to that funnel. We're not talking about Amazon. I have a book right now that's made over $1 million that hasn't even been published on Amazon. So if I want to turn it on Amazon, I can drive people from there to my funnel. But if you have your own book funnel where you're selling your own book on your website, now you can use it as a lead magnet, a list builder, a client conversion model. It doesn't hurt to put it on Amazon as well, but Amazon is about burying books. It's not about standing out through the noise. You can get lost on Amazon, and so can your customers. You don't even know who bought your book on Amazon. Now, the only reason we care about it is for bestseller ranking and credibility and making it easy for people to find you and buy. But if you are on a podcast, if you're going to, be featured in the media, like I'm featured in the media a lot, I drive people to my own funnel. And so from the order bumps to the upsells, what if you could pay for ads and your ads pay for themselves from day one? Now you can afford to scale. So I can show you that if you're doing $30 a day in ads, because of the conversion in the funnel, you're going to make 30,000 a month from that product and your back end offer. If you're if you're converting at 10% on the front end with that book in your funnel, then I know the back end's going to convert at a certain amount as well. So we've got it down to the science in the funnels. And I can't visually show you right now, but like I have this amazing calculator that shows you if you're spending $250 per day on ads and you're generating income where those ads are paying for themselves immediately, you're going to make over $1 million a year on your book and your service. So it's like most people get stuck in the framework, like, okay, which step? They write a book and then they don't build a funnel, or they write a book and they don't start promoting it. And Jack Canfield taught me from Chicken Soup for the Soul. They've sold more books than any human on this planet. Okay. They have 250 different book series with that brand. And sadly, that company is now out of business, but they sold it and then it kind of went away. But when they were in that thriving heyday, he said it's 10% writing and 90% marketing. So you've got to understand sales and marketing. We call it Sam, be friends with Sam, right?
And I
And
think and I think that's where people also get stuck. They would start a chapter and they're like, okay, chapter one, what am I going to talk about? Chapter two, oh, I already said that in chapter. So the writing is 10%, the marketing is 90%, but for a lot of people, I think it's the reverse. I think they think it's all about the writing when really, even if you write kind of a decent book, if you get the marketing out there, it will be amazing, amazing sales and amazing funneling, especially if you already have a business or if you're kind of already in the public eye, it will just, highlight you even more. So I think that's incredible. And I think you've sold me on it. Maybe I should start getting into it
well, I'll
because this
tell
is
you, well,
awesome.
the most important thing is collaboration. Like it's not about like you don't just go and in a hoodie in a shed in the middle of the woods and type out a manifesto. Like that's not no one wants to
I
read
think
your
a lot of people
diary.
have that Stephen King imagery
Yeah.
where I remember
Yeah.
back in when I was younger, if you were an author, you had a cigarette, you had a drink, it's raining, thunderstorms, you're like, yeah, the aura is here, okay, and you're just typing away. But I think times have changed.
Yeah, you don't have to be a tortured soul like Hemingway and drink every day to get the best voice out of you. And what's funny is, you can partner with AI. It doesn't mean that AI is going to hijack and write your book or hypnotize you into writing a book or anything. So the idea is that, you use AI as a partner because if you partner with AI, then the book that you create is better than either one of you on your own, if you do it correctly. So we actually built an AI generator that's a 15-minute AI book generator that just gives you your outline generator. So it asks you specific questions and it gives you a chance to really engage and interact with it. So it gives you a really clear picture of, okay, here's your outline. Here's what's in chapter one. Here's chapter two. Here's step one, step two of your system. And here's what's cool is those steps become chapters in your book and they become modules in a course or in if these are the steps in your solution or your program, it's all the same content. It's just this is a book that's maybe a 90-minute version of reading this as a solution. Or if you take an 8-week course or a 12-week course, you're going to go deeper on some of those steps, but it's the same process. It's just more expanded based on how you're serving that client. So your book is a way to introduce people to your system and your steps, and you give them the tools, but you charge for implementation on the back end.
Honestly, that is incredible. I am actually mind blown right now. I think a lot of people watching this are mind blown because it's such a it just it's you make it seem so simple when it really is simple. But I think a lot of us overthink it. We think of all the challenges that we might be facing when really it could be as simple as making a phone call, you know, getting some help, maybe getting it done within a few hours because of time constraints. But you're absolutely correct. I think entrepreneurs, business people, anybody who is in the public eye or even wants to be in the public eye or has some type of expertise in general should have a book, because if you're on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, you also should be published, right? It should be part of that ecosystem of highlighting who you are and your services and what products you're pushing out there.
Well, you're a
Melanie, that
content
was
creator. You're a
yeah.
content creator. And the thing about being on, I see these brilliant collaborators and creators online, influencers, and they have millions of followers, but they're broke. They're not making any money because you can't deposit followers in your bank account. Last time I checked. So this is a way to engage with your followers and give them something tangible, even if it's a live event or some kind of offer on the back end beyond just the content you're creating. And if you're already creating content, then you've created half the battle as writing a book because you've got so much good content already to use. It's already in your head. It's just not put in the right framework.
Exactly. And if you do have, those followers, they can buy your book, which translates into income pretty much compared to, as you just said, you can't take those followers and put it in your bank, but you can provide a book or other products that can bring them to the bank. No, that was incredible, Melanie. And so just to take a little pivot here, so you've spoken at the UN, the United Nations, and they're obviously a global organization. And you've also won the Mind Valley Speaker Competition. Can you tell us about those two experiences and what happened after? Did your exposure get bigger? Clientele get bigger? We would love to hear those experiences.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. So I've always been a fan of Vision and Mind Valley. I've been a customer for years. I've kind of looked at it as a business model. I thought this is a really smart way to grow your business and provide value in community. And so I went to a live event they were hosting, and it ended up being a speaker competition, and there were 50 people there, and it was taught by Eric Edmeades, who is brilliant, and he created the Wild Fit fitness program that Mind Valley licensed and millions of people have done. He's also one of the most prolific speakers in the world. People don't maybe not realize that, but he's an incredible speaker. He does a lot of corporate events. And gets hired all the time. And so he was leading this training. And then Vision says, I'm going to be there personally. My son's going to be part of it. I'm like, I have to go. I want to do this and I want to win. Right. So I went in to the speaker competition. I shared a speech and I ended up. So what they said is the top three finalists, you get to come speak to is to come to Estonia at the Mind Valley University event next summer, and you get to speak, and there's like 6,000 people there. And then we're going to look at licensing your IP and your content. And I'm like, I'm so in. So I ended up going, I went to the event, I met some amazing people, and I ended up winning. I placed second in the top three. So the first, second, and third people got to go, and we get to go speak in Estonia, and then they're looking at licensing our content. So I've gotten to see behind the scenes of how that works and noticing that so much of their trainers come from their own community. So we kind of adopted the things that I got to see on the inside that we're using in our own business to grow very, very quickly. And we're an 8-figure business scaling to 9 figures as well at this point. So I've learned a lot from them. That was a great experience. I had so much fun, and it's been a wild ride. And then the United Nations is a different story. So that is extremely rare. We partnered with a UN ambassador and advisors who said, normally, if you look at like these big companies that sponsor being able to talk at the UN, like it's a fundraiser for the UN, and it becomes like these 6-figure, like, or $1 million sponsorships, like there's no way we could afford to do that. So we were able to come in and work out a special side event with the UN that we partnered with them, and it worked so well. We've been doing it ever since. So I actually got to go speak at the United Nations during the General Assembly, the same day as President Trump and all these world leaders were there. And it just was life-changing to be in the room with people like that, the most powerful people in the world. And you realize how much would it cost to to put on this event and have these people, these world leaders come from all over the world. Like just the when you talk about the power of proximity of being in the room with these people, there was this quiet man sitting at my table all day long. I got up and spoke. I spoke about the cash value of a woman, which is also a new book that I released. And it was based on a famous essay that my great grandmother wrote in the winter of 1915. Her name was Phoebe K. Warner, and she was one of the first women to run for Congress. She was very big in the women's suffrage movement. And I gave my speech. This guy gets up and says, "We need more women in the UN." And he wrote a check for $10 million to the UN. And I went, "What?" That's the kind of people sitting in that room. So we created this really unique opportunity to be able to take a few people every year to speak at the United Nations during the UN Women's event, which is happening right now in New York, and in September at the General Assembly. And so I decided to launch my book, The Cash Value of a Woman, at the UN Women's event. So I'm going to be speaking there in the next few days. My book is already out and it's officially launching at that same time. And I'm going to be with all these amazing female leaders from around the world that are loving and endorsing the book already. So it's just, those are the kinds of things that give you leverage. It gives you, your business, and your authority so much more leverage when you can plug into these huge platforms. But if you don't have a book and an offer and a funnel, then it's hard to monetize these stages, you guys, because everybody thinks, oh, I need to be on Good Morning America or just get on the Oprah Book Club. But if you don't get paid to do a TED Talk, you don't get paid to go on Good Morning America. So if you don't have an offer, a book, and a funnel, then you're probably not going to monetize that stage very well. And you're not going to get those opportunities unless you are a best-selling author, because 80% of the time, journalists will bring in a best-selling author as a credible source in their stories or on TV because they know this person wrote the book on it.
Well, for one, that must have been the best and one of a kind. And I mean, just speaking at the UN, only a handful of people in history have ever done that. So, applause to you, kudos to you, because,
Thank you.
the United Nations is where the best of the best, the top of the top go. And even being invited is just a luxury in itself. So, I'm actually so happy to be talking to you even more now because this is absolutely amazing. It's just like peeling an onion. It's like every layer, you're just like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
And the best part is, it's like, as you said, your books can be a leverage to going to these kind of places, hanging out with these kind of people, the proximity that you're in, because most of these people are not watching YouTube. Most of these people are not watching television, but they are avid readers. They are very up to date with their literature. They're reading articles, research papers, and they're very knowledgeable in their expertise. And if you have a book, if you're published, chances are, I believe you did mention earlier that Mark Cuban is currently reading a book that came from your company as well.
Yes, so there's actually science. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's science that readers are leaders. And so when you look at the most successful people making the most money in the world, most of them are reading books every single week. And you look at the people that are in the lowest economic state of like not making money, and most of them haven't picked up a book since high school. So knowing that readers are leaders and that you want leaders and high ticket clients like big, huge, entrepreneurs as your clients, the book is the fastest way to get in there. So I have a brand new client. In fact, I met her. Her name's Melody. I met her at the Mind Valley event just a few months ago. She got up on that stage. She had never spoken before on a stage, and she was literally crying and shaking and having a hard time because she was so scared to get on that stage. She went there to get over her stage fright. Since then, she came in and started working with us. She wrote a book. She brought her husband in to write a book. Her husband's Dr. Phil, which is hilarious. So
The
not the
Dr.
doctor,
Phil?
no,
Oh.
a different Dr. Phil. So, so he's writing his second book with us, and she's writing her book. And then we got her, she started opening up so much. We put her on the NBC morning show already. She's now going to be on CNBC. She got Tom Hegna, the finance guru from PBS and CNBC, to endorse her book. And now she has Mark Cuban reading her book to give her an endorsement. And her book is about finance and money. So, how do you think that's going to elevate her in a very short amount of time? And her book is basically done. We had a first draft in 30 days. So within 60 days, her book, her funnel, and all these platforms were built out so she can just kind of take this rocket ship. But just a few months ago, she was this woman who was so scared to get on a stage. She literally was crying and couldn't speak on a stage. That just blows my mind. I love seeing people do things they don't think are possible and just, I mean, she is unleashed and doing the most amazing things. So I'm really proud of Melody. Um, and
No, I
that's the
mean,
kind of stuff I love doing is helping people have the platform to do that,
yeah, and
giving
I
people
Yeah,
platforms.
and I think a lot of us right now listening to this are actually shocked and astonished because we didn't know books can actually open these type of doors. Melody going from being, a little timid, going up in front of people, now, doing book tours and appearing on television and having billionaires reading her expertise in her books, which in my opinion, this is incredible. And I think a lot of people are definitely going to utilize your services after this. And let's talk about your book that's coming up, The Cash Value of a Woman. Can you tell us more about that book? And what does the term cash value of a woman mean? Because these days, of course, we have thankfully we're in North America where men and women have a much more equal opportunity when it comes to a lot of things, but globally it's still not there yet. But can you tell us more about the book and what that term means?
Absolutely. So, I think I mentioned earlier, but my great grandmother wrote a famous essay. She was a journalist and a writer. Her name was P.K. Warner, Phoebe K. Warner. So she wrote a book, she wrote a survey, like an essay a long time ago, the winter of 1915. And her goal was to convince men to allow their wives to just spend $15 a year, to give them a budget, allow them to go to the store, buy groceries, and be the CFO of the family, right? And men were very resistant to giving women money. And it wasn't out of control, it was about protection. They didn't want their wives walking around with cash, being a target where they could get, assaulted or something like that. And this was the Wild West. We're talking about late 1800s, early 1900s, right? And so a lot of men, didn't let their wives be involved in making money or choosing how the money was spent because they thought it was respectful if they were the breadwinner and they just took care of them in a traditional way. And the wives didn't have to worry their pretty little heads about all the stress of money, right? And so these men were not doing it out of ignorance, they were doing it out of protection and love and respect. And so women were saying, hey, if we can understand, no one's teaching women about money, and they stopped teaching it in schools too. So this was before both of the world wars, before the Great Depression. She said, let me put a nickel in this survey, in this essay. She said, I'm going to assign a nickel to every task that a woman does. How much would it
Wow.
cost if you had to hire a wife or a mother? And it was over $60,000 back then. In today's dollars, it's over 2 million. Think about it.
Wow.
If you had to hire a wife or a mother every time you have to take your kids to school or make your meals or do your laundry or drive you somewhere, I mean, all the things that our wives and moms do. And here's the deal. I discovered this again recently because I was making a list. I was hiring a new assistant and I was making a list of all the tasks I needed them to do. And some of it was personal, some of it was business. It was over 400 tasks. And I went, oh, these are all the things my mom does for my dad for 64 years. What if he had to pay for that? Now, I mean, my mom and dad have an amazing relationship. They have a partnership. She has a great life. They were partners. It's 50-50. They split everything. It's like they have a great relationship. But I started thinking for me as a single mom, okay, I need to hire a wife. I need to hire a mother. I need to hire somebody to do all these personal things like tutor my kids or drive them to school or do laundry and match up the socks and like make meals because I'm working, I'm trying to make money, but I don't have time to do the domestic stuff right now that doesn't generate income, So what if I have to hire somebody? And it was so expensive to think of going out and hiring somebody to do all these things. It was very it was very frustrating to think of how much money it was. So the whole point of this book now is to bring that back to current. It's talking about this ledger that was introduced so many years ago and then celebrating how far women have come. And there's still some ways that women are holding themselves back. It's not about men not giving women opportunity because women have lots of opportunities now. Um, but what's interesting and really amazing is 1915, they had to beg for $15. And the world was living at 90% below the poverty level. Now, here we are today, where women are going to be controlling in the next 5 to 10 years over $15 trillion. And they're not being educated about money still. And so women represent 85 cents of every dollar spent in the US. If you're married, you're going to say it's 100% of every dollar, probably. And so it's called the power of the purse. Women are the CFOs of the family. They make a lot of the financial decisions. Um, if they're working in professional organization, like maybe their spouse is like an attorney or an accountant, they're usually the bookkeeper, they're, answering phones, they're doing all these other things, and they're not necessarily getting compensated like an employee would. They're not getting 401ks and all of that. So what happens if they get a divorce? They've invested years in this business. So now it feels more like, hey, they should get half. Like at first, I'm like, that's a lot of money to get in a divorce. But when you start to really measure the cash value of a woman, it's really meant to inspire and appreciate the wives, the mothers, the sisters, the daughters, the people that are caregivers and don't get paid. They do it because they love their families. We wouldn't dream of paying our mothers and sisters and daughters and wives to do these things. So it's really just changing the word expectation to appreciation, and it changes the dynamic of that entire family relationship.
I think that
And
is, I think that's incredible, honestly, because I think every human, every person that does anything, whether it's cash or incentives, there is a value to it. And I think when it comes to especially mothers, sisters, daughters, I guess, the women in the household, men just kind of think of it as, well, I mean, that's your job, right? Isn't it? But if it's their job, what's the value of that job, right? Shouldn't they be compensated for something, right? And I think that book I'm definitely going to read it because, I see what my mom does all the time. I don't have sisters, unfortunately, but I do see what my mom does. And thankfully my dad is awesome, but it's like, she works as well. But then I look at other families and it's just stay at home mom, doesn't get compensated, no incentive. And as you said, if a divorce does happen or a separation does happen, she's kind of left with starting from scratch, even though she put in 10, 15, 20 years of her effort, time, and love and life into this family and all the things that make the household run smoothly. So I think this is an incredible book, and I think it's going to definitely be a game changer. And hopefully it goes global because I think it is definitely needed in a global perspective where right now, slowly they're coming along, but it's still not where it needs to be, where women have that power of self-power and of course power out there in society. And so where do you see publishing and media going from here? I know at the beginning of the conversation, many people watching were probably thinking, a book? What? That's so old school. But now after this interview, they're thinking, oh my gosh, okay, a book is definitely necessary. But where do you see publishing and media going in the future, especially with AI involved?
well, you've got ebook, you've got print, and you've got audiobook. And then there's another version of like a PDF where it can be a lead magnet, where you drive people to your own website. They get your book, they can download it immediately. Then there's upsells and order bumps there. So then they ascend into booking a call with you. And so the idea is it can become like your book can become part of your client conversion model formula. It's a marketing tool for your business. And people don't throw away books, they throw away business cards, but they don't throw away books.
Oh, that's a
And so
good point.
it's a big part of it. And so the future of books, so Amazon has disrupted that space, and has changed the industry more in the last 10 years than it has in the last thousands of years of books, right? And so it's interesting. It used to be the old way was you had to go through a major publisher. The only credibility was they would deem if you were worthy. It was very political, and only a few people could get in. The industry was designed to keep people out. That space is dying. Those old dinosaurs aren't moving that quickly because I call it the dinosaur versus the lizard theory. I'd rather be the lizard that can move really fast and get things done than be the old dinosaur. Now, the old dinosaur can squish the lizard, but the lizard can dart in and out and move faster because that's what the marketplace is asking for, this agile ability to be nimble and quick and solve solutions very fast. You can literally produce a book within a few days. We've done it in an hour where we interviewed a client for 15 minutes. We extracted their information, and within an hour, we built their book, their funnel, their templates, their book covers, like all their areas of expertise, their press release. Like we can do things very, very quickly now with templates. Um, and the idea is with AI, there's people abusing it and writing really bad books. There's people that are trying to rip off other books. There's a big class action lawsuit that just happened with Claude recently, where they admitted that they were taking intellectual property of some authors and plugging it in and trying to program their system, and they got busted. Okay. And so this is happening a lot in the industry. So the biggest thing is authors have to protect their IP, their intellectual property, which is trademark and copyright, everything that you're doing so that you know and people know that you own it, which is what we did with Seven Figure Book Method. It's what we did with Defining Moments. I did it with Cash Value of a Woman. So I buy URLs, like I have cashvaluewoman.com. That's the book funnel for that book. I have the number seven, sevenfigurebookmethod.com. I bought that URL for that funnel for that book. So now I can drive people through those funnels and they kind of have their own experience with the book at however their comfort circle is. Some people buy the book, some people want to buy a course, some people want mentorship one-on-one, some people want to book a call, some people want to come to watch a webinar or a masterclass. So there's different comfort circles of how people engage with your content. And you got to make it easy for people to get involved with you, to book a call, to ask a question, to watch content. So this is happening a lot in the media industry. You're starting to see Hollywood because of AI, where they're saying that Hollywood studios are dead because now you can go create content in a very short amount of time and you can get it distributed and go direct to the distributors. And I know this because I'm also a TV producer and film. We've got a whole production distribution company, and we have licensing agreements with all major distributors and aggregates like Hulu, Netflix, Peacock, Amazon, Apple TV, all of them. So we're producing content all the way from here's somebody that has a great story that wants to write a book, and then all the way to that story can become a movie. So we can literally take an idea all the way from each stage to fruition to getting that story out on a global level. And what we've really built is an ecosystem. I guess this is my real superpower, is building public platforms that allow people the chance to share their story and their genius with the world through books, stages, media, and all these different opportunities like TV and movies and all this other stuff. So it's like it's building the platforms of authority for people.
Wow, honestly, just having that whole funnel ecosystem from one place, I think that is like, it's like a turnkey house, right? You don't have to do much to it. You just open that door, get the key, and it's your house. And I think that is the best way to do it because you don't want to go to 10 different companies for 10 different items when you can call Defining Moment Press and boom, have it from A to Z. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to struggle with, but we have you here and you have definitely sold us on it because I am now highly, like when I say highly, like 150% chance of me actually considering writing a book because it just adds on to your ecosystem of whatever you already have, highlights you a little bit more. It attracts those people who read books and maybe don't watch social media or television. It's just another addition to, I guess, your belt, right? So Melanie, you have given us some amazing wisdom, like legit the most amazing wisdom that I have not heard in a long time. And I think you're going to get a lot of emails, a lot of calls from my audience members. But before we end this interview, we do have a small segment where we ask out of the box questions, just 3 questions. Are you up for it?
Sure.
Okay, so first question. If Defining Moments Press was a person, what kind of personality would it have?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. It would be a super fun, really smart, talented person that you would want to hang out with. Like that's just what the environment we've created, and it's just so much fun.
I love that. Second question. What is the most random or weirdest app that you've downloaded in the past? Some people have like a meditation app, some people have like a sunset app. What's the most random app that you've downloaded?
I don't know what it's called, but I don't know if it's working right, but it's on my phone. You can see on my phone, I love Paris, right? So you can click on it and it's actually moves, right? It's kind of like
Oh,
a motion graphic kind of thing. It's really neat. And I made that like my like it just makes me happy to look at different cities around the world that like it's almost like it looks like a live cam, but it's
like a
really a
collage
photo.
kind of style. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a photo, but it's like you touch it and the photo's moving. Like it's like you can see the traffic going and it just makes you feel like you're
Oh,
there.
no way. Okay, that is
Yeah.
actually pretty cool. And last question. Even though you're currently in entrepreneurship and publishing, if you were not in this sector at all, what other career would you have gone into? I know you said acting as well, but that doesn't count.
Yeah. I mean, I think producing because it's something, I mean, I'm doing it anyways, but it's just something that I know I'm good at. I don't have to change anything about myself to be really, really good at producing. And it's like everything I've ever wanted to do, I'm in that space right now. So it's hard to say, everyone in my family wanted me to be an attorney because they all are attorneys. And I
Yeah.
said, oh, it's too much paperwork. So then I go into book publishing and magazine publishing, which is even more paperwork.
You
So
know
I
what?
think
That's
probably an
awesome.
attorney. I think I would probably be, I think I'd make a really good attorney.
No, that is awesome. I've heard random careers like I want to be a pro golfer, or I want to be have my own rock band and things like that. So I think attorney definitely fits into this. Melanie, before we end off, is there anything else you want to put out there in the digital world for my audience or for anyone else out there?
I just want to say thank you, Jacob. I love this show. I love what you do. You have such a great personality and a great energy about you. Like I can tell you really care about your audience. And, I just appreciate your having me on. I know this is a new relationship. We just met, so I'm very grateful. I'd love to help your audience, and I want you to get credit for that. Like anybody that comes through that does end up working with us, please tell me that you heard about me here so I can go back and thank Jacob properly because I feel like there's so much knowledge in the world that we have the ability, if we all just do a little bit, to really solve so many problems for other people, that every one of you has something that you've overcome in your own life or business, that you don't have to be this big, huge supermodel to help somebody lose 20 pounds and change their whole life. You just have to be one chapter ahead. And so when you know that your life has a new chapter, you got to trust yourself because you're the author of that chapter in your life and in your next book, right? So if you're serious about building that platform and you really know you have something to say, then I want to give you the microphone and the platform to be able to do that. And I want to help you get there as soon as you can because I know the impact that all of you can make on so many other people's lives. And so I would love to support that in any way and invite you to come see our website, mydefiningmoments.com. And there's a book a call page. You can kind of go down the rabbit hole there if you want. But we will put you on the phone with one of our publishers or producers, really listen to your idea and give you a plan of what you need to do next. And we customize it based on who you are, where you are in that process, and what you need the most help with.
Melanie, thank you for the kind words. And honestly, you have been amazing on this channel. And audience, this is not the only time you're going to see Melanie. We are definitely going to have her back on, whether it's talking about her future books, what's happening out there in the publishing world, and just maybe, hey, maybe some of you contacted her and she would definitely love to tell me all about it. Melanie, thank you so much. Audience, I'm going to have all of Melanie's information, all the books, all the websites in the description box. So please check it out because I am definitely checking it out. Hey, before you know it, you might see a Jacob book. Who knows? But I will
Yes.
definitely going to be looking into this. So make sure you like and you subscribe. And until the next time, stay ranting.